Okay. Okay, Cuyahoga County Public Works Procurement Contracting Committee meeting for Wednesday, January the 19th, 2022. Will be called to order. Can we have the roll call, please?
As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Tuma,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Conwell,
Present.
Mr. Sweeney,
Present.
Ms. Turner.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, great, thanks. Is there any public comment this morning?
No, Mr. Chair, no one submitted any public comment.
Okay, and if we could have approval of minutes from the November 17th, 2021 meeting?
Also move for approval. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second on those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay, the ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you could read the first matter into the record.
Resolution 2021-0290, approving an additional right-of-way exhibit as set forth in plat number M5036 for the replacement of Jefferson Avenue Bridge number 00.57 between West 3rd Street and the Cuyahoga River in the city of Cleveland.
Okay, and if you could just please state your name for the record.
Nicole English with Public Works.
Okay, Ms. English, and if you could have an explanation of this legislation?
So we previously approved a right-of-way exhibit for this project. This is the replacement of Jefferson Bridge in Cleveland, just west of the Cuyahoga to the north. I've provided you guys an exhibit I think you should have on your
Okay, we do.
desks.
Everybody have the exhibit here? Okay.
So just north of the bridge is St. Mary's Cement Plant. Initially, we thought we would shut the bridge down for a couple months and we would negotiate with them on a right-of-way payment to shut them down. The process has been rough over the last year, back and forth with them. Finally, the costs that they've presented us are pretty exorbitant, and we don't think we're coming to terms with them. So before going to eminent domain, we had our engineers go back and look, is there any other options? So now they have come up with an option where we can take this Scotham Avenue, where you can see sort of south of the bridge, where the orange lines are, and put a temporary road in so that St. Mary's will be able to access their site, will be able to shut the bridge down. And so now we would be paying for right-of-way this is called Lafarge Properties. So the good part with it is it's storage area for them. It's not shutting down their operation. They will be able to still operate. We've had initial discussions with them early on, and they seemed amenable to talk. And it seems based on some high-level values. We haven't gotten the full appraisal back yet, but this should be significantly less than what St. Mary's was kind of demanding for a shutdown. So we have to come back to ask you to approve this right-of-way purchase, and then once we have approval, we will start negotiating with this new property owner. If for some reason it still gets extremely high and we can't get to a term, we might be back to go eminent domain, but we're really hoping that we can avoid that and that this is a solution that everybody will be happy with.
Okay, and what was the old property owner asking?
I don't exactly want.
But it was north of
Millions.
500,000?
Millions.
Okay,
We're just trying to, we still got to negotiate with these guys, so.
all right. And what do you think the chances are of having fruitful negotiations with the other company?
In talks so far, they are friendly, interested. We've shown them the idea, the plan. They seem to think it should work. Again, until you start talking money, you don't ever know.
Right.
But I think we should get somewhere for much less. We're not shutting them down. They're still going to be able to operate. It's essentially a temporary use of their land while we build. And then we'd be able to pull out. The good part with this too, though, is if we go this route, we can lower the construction cost because we won't have as tight of a restriction on that bridge closure. Before, we were trying to restrict them to only maybe about a month of bridge closure. Now they'd be able to be closed for a lot longer. So our construction price should come down a little bit. The building the road will cost a little bit. So all in all, we still should be in better shape financially.
Okay, I'll open the floor to questions. Any questions? Ms. Conwell?
To the chair, to Nicole. So why is it that we don't have an easement already? And I'm just going to explain why. My train of thought is that I thought with bridges, county bridges, that these things have been established already.
So we do have a right-of-way where the bridge is. So that sort of straight line across your sheet, we have it there. However, we can't keep it open and build it at the same time. So we have to go some other route, because this bridge is in actually pretty bad shape right now. It's restricted to one lane, so they can only go out or in. It really is only serving St. Mary's, though, so there's not a lot of traffic on there, not public traffic or anything. And this is one of these bridges that we thought the city of Cleveland, about 10 years ago, they did an overall inventory and it became a county bridge. So it doesn't serve a lot of people, but it's still the county's responsibility. So we have to shut it down. In order to shut it down, to work on it, we have to go somewhere. We have to get them into their property. And so that's where now we're coming up with this alternative access.
And just to follow up, is there something that the state could do in terms of legislation for the safety and welfare of citizens if we have, I don't want to say bad actors, but people that don't want to participate when there's a bridge that impacts
So
different
our only real option is eminent domain, right? And so we could declare eminent domain and go to court and then let the courts decide what the fair price is, which is probably where we would have ended up with St. Mary's if our engineers didn't look harder and try to figure out this alternative route. Because, again, the bridge has to be replaced. It's not in good shape. It's serving their property. They should be thankful that we're doing it, but again, it is a public right-of-way. We have to fix it. We don't want it to fall. The other tricky part with this is it's over the railroad, and you know how fun railroads are to deal with. So, that just adds another piece to the whole situation. So we've been working with the railroad to try to talk about closure, and if we could do another at-grade crossing somewhere else. They weren't interested in that. So this project is probably 3 years in the making to get to this point, just trying to come up with some solutions.
You see what I'm saying about the state, being able to,
Yeah, it's a county bridge. I mean, I don't know that there's any state legislation that would help us opposed to just
So
filing.
the solution that was provided by the state in situations like this is the eminent domain, where basically the county or any other municipal corporation would be allowed to access the property while the amount for the acquisition of the property is placed in escrow while the parties negotiate an acceptable price.
okay.
So the county is allowed to start the process and the project while the parties are still negotiating. So that was the avenue provided by the state.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, Director, how much money are we talking about to build the roadway? And would the roadway stay there when the project's done, or would it be removed when the project is over?
So the roadway is scheduled to be temporary because it does have to climb a little bit of a grade. So there would be some temporary work that they would do that they wouldn't anticipate leaving there forever, or it would have to be designed a little bit bulkier. The cost of the roadway is looking to be under $1 million. Again, we haven't totally designed it. This is kind of preliminary. So once we get into final design, we'll have better costs. But that's where we did our cost benefit, is looking at, a road cost of a little less than $1 million versus what they were asking for that property. And then also gaining us some construction cost on being able to close the bridge for longer.
So you would build a road for almost $1 million, and then when the project is done, you would take the road down?
Yeah. I know. They do, we do this in other places where we're, like say on Sprague Road, when we were widening, you have to build pavement on one side to maintain the two-way traffic, and then you pull up that asphalt at the end of the job. It does happen. And again, we just look at cost benefit of our different alternatives, and that's where we've come to.
What's the total project cost estimated?
$4.3 million for construction. And we do have issue 1 funding for about $2 million of it.
So the cost of the roadway is going to be something like 20% of the total cost.
Correct.
And how much traffic does this bridge get?
Hundreds of cars a day only. And not really cars. This is a cement plant, so it doesn't have very many workers there, a few. It's mostly trucks coming in and out. So we are investigating after we do the project to abandon this as a county road. However, by law, it is ours today. So we're responsible.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. If we wanted to abandon the road, how would we do that? I'm just curious.
So there's a process we go through that we come to you, and then it ends up to the city, and then they
They would
sort
take
of inherit.
ownership?
Right.
Okay.
So we have done that on a few, and we're proposing, there's a couple other bridges in the county that we've discovered recently, you know, that just no longer serve a purpose. This road obviously used to go across the river, I think, as you can see the right-of-way, so I think that's why it was a county road, probably way back in the day. Once that bridge was abandoned, it really goes nowhere anymore, besides that St. Mary's plant.
All right, so right now, it's basically getting over the railroad, is that what it is?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so this is a matter of really just trying to cut our losses here and get the best deal we can at this point, given the circumstances. With no other questions, what time frame are we looking at on
We'd
this?
appreciate second reading suspension, because we do have issue 1 funds that have to be awarded before July. So the quicker we can get out there and negotiate with these guys, the better.
Okay. If there's no objection, I'll make a motion to move this along on second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And we'll move our 2021-0290 on second reading suspension. Thank you, Ms. English. And Madam Clerk, it's my understanding that for this next piece of legislation, Mr. Popovich is trying to make his way over to the county building. So we would, if we could, take letter C as opposed to B, so we can give him the time to try to get here if he makes it.
Resolution 2022-0009, authorizing revenue generating agreement number 2140 with the City of Cleveland Heights in the amount not to exceed $600,000 for maintenance and repair of storm and sanitary sewers located in County Sewer District Number 17 for the period January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022.
Okay, and if you could state your name for the record.
Nicole English, Public Works again. So this is our annual agreement with Cleveland Heights to do sanitary services. So some cities, as you'll remember, are on a direct bill, and they don't need to pass separate legislation every single year. Cleveland Heights is one of those cities that is a year to year, so they determine with their budget how much they want to set aside every year, then we pass an agreement. So we have reached out to the new mayor, and hopefully we can maybe get off of this annual agreement and get a more standard, process going forward, so you don't have to see this every year, and they don't have to pass it also on their side. But for now, for 2022, they've set aside $600,000. This is for services that they call us, we do, and bill them back. And this comes out of the sanitary fund, so it's revenue generating. They pay us.
Okay, yeah, I've dealt with that mayor before. No. So how many other communities are full contracts versus annual in the county? Do you know?
I don't know the direct,
Okay.
very few are on this annual. You might see 3, 4 that come to you, and even Board of Control sees some of them, because some of them only set aside a couple $100,000. I think Brook Park we just did recently, or Berea. So there's a couple that are like this. Cleveland Heights, because it's over the 500, you're seeing it at council. But not many are this annual, where we're having to pass them, maybe 3, 4.
Okay, and are there some that are what you would like kind of deem like a la carte, where they kind of pick and choose services? Is that,
Yes.
I thought I
Some
read
are
something on
full
7
service, where we do everything and collect their sewer fees that's in ours. And then others are more like, they almost treat us like a contractor, right? They'll call us when they need us, we bill them back just for that service, and they pay us that way.
Okay. Any questions from my colleagues on this? Okay. Obviously, if this is an annual contract, I see that, there's a time.
Yeah, it did take us a minute. They signed the contract first, so we waited for that. So it would be good, second reading suspension, just to have coverage. Obviously, if they're calling us and they need service, we are servicing them, even
Okay.
anticipating this agreement going through.
Okay. I'll make that motion for second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, okay. We could add Ms. Conwell's name to that. And we have a motion and a second for second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the ayes have it. Okay. And we were waiting for Mr. Popovich. Does anybody have a time frame on Mr. Rifle?
We could
I
start
would
with the
suggest
intro.
we could start. And
Okay, that's fine.
Do we have a substitute resolution to introduce anyhow?
Okay,
So-
that's fine. We'll start the resolution, and if he makes it here in time, wonderful. If not, we'll take
I'll
it
go
from
ahead and
there.
read it into the record. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll go ahead and read it into the record.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution 2021-0291, authorizing contract number 1921 with SMG Huntington Convention Center of Cleveland in the amount not to exceed $379,328 for the lease of space at Huntington Convention Center of Cleveland and the Global Center for Health Innovation located at 1 St. Clair Avenue Northeast, Cleveland, for jury duty operations for the Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas for the period August 28, 2021 through December 31st, 2021.
All right, thank you. And if you folks could just state your names for the record.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and committee. Michael Dower, Director of Public Works of Cuyahoga County.
Melanie Say.
The reason for this item before us today is when the crisis started, the pandemic back in 2020, the court shut down operations. And later that year, they attempted to reopen their operations, and one of the key pieces of this was to try and get some type of social distancing. Obviously, the building, the current Justice Center is full space, and we tried to accommodate the courts by so they could bring jurors back to the court. The convention center across the street was not being utilized, and this seemed like a logical connection for the courts just to expand its services, to be able to get the jurors to come in, feel comfortable to start utilizing this space. We were authorized to move forward with this under emergency ordinance back in 2020, signed by the council president. And there has been subsequent amendments as the crisis has kind of continued, and variants of COVID-19 have kept coming forward. The courts has continued to try and expand this and stay there. Once again, the key piece to this is being able to get jurors to come downtown, feel comfortable. They bring in roughly 400 jurors each week to hear cases. So this has worked out really nicely. So what we have before you today is an amendment for the use of that space through June of this year, 2022.
Okay, and again, this is it's been, originally it was on emergency. Council President signed off on it.
That's correct, yes, and we were utilizing CARES Act at the beginning of the crisis.
Okay, and now what are we utilizing to pay?
So for the amendment, or should I say the substitute amendment that's before us today? I see the courts are with us now.
Okay.
Our intent is to utilize CARES dollars for this 6 months of January, or I'm sorry, CARES ARPA dollars for
ARPA.
January through June of this year.
Okay.
Courts ended up picking up a portion of this cost last year, which is before you today. I noticed that the court administrator is with us also, and maybe he can step up and offer some insight also.
Okay, well, that's fine. We'll have him step up and, well, you know what, first I'll ask, are there any questions of the director with respect to this legislation? Mr. Sweeney, and then Ms. Conwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm standing because I have a bad leg, so I apologize.
No problem.
Not a bad leg that hurts, I should say.
From the Cleveland State days.
Oh, sciatica, being old.
Husband
To
was
the
in the
chair,
past.
to our chair, to our fiscal officer, when you negotiated with the Huntington building, since it's county to county, what's the rate? Do we get a discount? Is it market value, and how did that work?
So if I could, I'll ask Greg to join us up at the podium here. And since the Global Center wasn't being utilized, obviously they have expenses within the building. We negotiated a set rate with them. As you can tell, the rates before you today are different from last year to what we're asking for the 22 timeframe. But we felt like it was marketable and a good rate that was, and we included also AV equipment because there is Zoom meetings that are taking place. So that is incorporated into this also.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what I'm hearing, it wasn't a bailout for the convention center. It was just well thought out with partners trying to figure it out. And if there's long-term use, it can be benefited. thought process.
Yes, this was an ideal relationship put together to be able to try and keep the courts moving forward. Obviously, the courts, you know, they have to continue to work there, even in light of, you know, jail population and things like that. You got to keep those courts moving so that we can keep people out of, you know, the jail.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank your team and the courts team working together. That's an example of how things should be done. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Since he's here, you want to maybe have Mr. Popovich? Just from the court, please just state your name for the record.
Greg Popovich, I'm with the Court of Count, please. I'm the court administrator with the court.
And just from the court's perspective, the purpose of the legislation, you guys are in agreement with this, and this is something that you find useful and beneficial during this pandemic?
I probably would label it more essential.
No, that's good to know.
Because it's, without that space, the bottom line is without jurors, first I should say apologize. I should say good morning to all of you, so chair and council members. But anyways, without jurors, of course, we can't hold jury trials, and without jury trials, we can't move cases. And so that's the essential piece of our operation. And for the jurors to feel comfortable in coming down to us, we need social distancing. We cannot do that in the space that we have in the Justice Center. It's not possible. And unfortunately, the constant fluctuations with the COVID, just when you think you're getting ahead of it, it comes back. And so we've had to adapt and adapt multiple times. But ultimately, it's trying to make the citizens of Cuyahoga County, who are my volunteers, comfortable in the space that they're in, which is why that space is that essential to us. We've done everything we can in our courtrooms to have dividers and everything, and I think Public Works for that. They did a wonderful job with our courtrooms and working with us on that. But our jury room just is not able to handle the number of jurors that we need. And so that's why I would label it essential to the efficient operations of the court for us to move forward.
Okay, appreciate that. Any questions from my colleagues, Mr. Popovich? Mr. Miller?
So to the director, the original contract was supposed to start on 8/28/2021. Why did it take so long for it to get here?
Oh. I'm like,
We actually had some issues with getting the document signed by the vendor with the whole variant going on. And then we had some discussions on actually the funding for the part from August to December. We had to get approval for it to also be covered with the CARES Act, which we did eventually get approval for. Once we got approval, it did have to go to the BOC for exemption. And so it went to the BOC for exemption before council's recess. So it never was able to make that final agenda.
And how did the cost from now through June 30th compare with what the costs were for the prior period? Are the rates different, and if so, in what ways?
The rates aren't different. There was some change in the rooms, but the rates are the same from the previous contract to this contract.
So you're saying that the rates are the same, but you're using more space?
The rooms changed. Previously, they were using the atrium and the fourth floor. On one of the agreements, it was excluding the atrium. So it's just a change of rooms.
And Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Popovich, is the Common Pleas Court currently operating at 100% of capacity in terms of the number of jury trials being held, or is it less than that?
it is less than that at the moment. We are currently have suspended jury trials until I believe February 7th. So that's where we're at the moment.
And are you expecting in February that you're going to be able to be running at full capacity, or will it still be less than full capacity?
Certainly hope to be, but unfortunately, it's about adapting to their surrounding environment that we're forced to deal with. at this point, I can't answer the question. I mean, some of it is dictated by what is happening. I will tell you that the judges are meeting again this week to discuss that very issue. Look at the numbers and see how things are moving forward from that standpoint. I do want to point out as to the space. So one of the things that we did do is consolidate our operations to one floor. And what does that mean? Well, we now are on the 4th floor. That allowed the sheriff's department, with our partner, stakeholder in this, to be able to commit less staff. So they were trying to hold, they had staff on the 1st floor, they had staff on other floors. So we consolidated our operations now on one of the floors so that they were able to reduce the number of staff people they needed on the 4th floor in the building. So it was also from an efficiency standpoint in terms of space-wise. I'll also want to note that the current agreement compared to the last agreement, that was 4 months, this is a 6-month agreement. So that would be also the other reason for the difference in prices as well.
And do you have to pay for space for use in January, even though you're not currently operating trials?
We do. The bottom line is we don't want someone else to be able to get that space and be committed to it other than ourselves, because if we did lose that space, I'm not quite sure where else we would go for our operations. I will tell you that in January, we used our space for grand jury selection. So there are other things that are still able to go on in the building other than just jury selection for our jury trials. So we are using it for other things. The grand jury does meet on that floor as well, on the 4th floor. That's part of our consolidation. Everything is up on that 4th floor now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just more of a curiosity with the jury trial, is it for selection and deliberation, or is it just for?
Well, for grand jury, it's for deliberations and presentment to the grand jury. For the jurors themselves, it's just for assembly. So the way the operation works, the jurors assemble over there and they wait until they get a call from across the street. That's when we're holding jury trials. And then the jurors come across the street. We walk them across the street. So I actually have staff in 2 spots. It's been challenging, but we're making do. So when they come across the street, which is fewer jurors, there we're able to do social distancing. So for instance, if there's a postponement in the trial and they need a recess, then they'll move the jurors down to the 4th floor temporarily. But we can social distance a small number of the jurors down there so they don't have to walk back across the street. It's certainly a big issue come wintertime, so that we don't want jurors walking back and forth, and bad things can happen when that happens, especially people have a difficult time walking or hit ice. That wouldn't be good either. So we try not to move people too much across the street. So that's what we're doing there.
Yeah, thank you.
And just with each judge's jury room, the Public Works retrofitted it so there's public or social distancing there.
So a lot of, in the jury rooms, what they're doing there, a lot of the judges are now allowing the jurors to deliberate in the courtrooms themselves, so they can actually spread out.
That's cool.
So, we made a lot of changes in what we're normally doing. So a lot of the judges now do that, so.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the deference to get my curiosity.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. On a personal note, I was called for jury duty a couple months back, and it's a very efficient process, and people were well spaced. It was, I would say, a positive experience as jury duty goes.
It can be. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Right. So it's working. So that's a good thing. That's the important thing here. Any other questions? We have a proposed substitute here with the additional the change in the time frame from 12/31/21 to 6/30/22, and the change in dollar value from $379 $328 to $989 $350, $989,350 for the lease of that space. Could I have a motion to accept proposed substitute for resolution number R 2021-0291?
I so move.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept proposed substitute resolution R 2021-0291. All those in favor of accepting this proposed substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Is there anything you'd like to add regarding the substitute?
No, we just are respectfully requesting second reading suspension.
Okay. Is there anything from my colleagues with respect to the proposed substitute, specific to the substitute?
I didn't catch the date that it's extended to.
It's extended to June 30th of 2022, till June.
Thank you.
Okay? With that, if there are no additional questions, I'll make a motion to accept, proposed substitute resolution R 2021-0291 on second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to move resolution R 20-21-0291 as proposed substitute on second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, thank you, Mr. Dever. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Popovich, as well, for stopping by. Is there anything else before the committee this morning that we need to discuss? Any pending miscellaneous business? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second to adjourn? Oh,
Didn't have that?
we did that. We did that earlier.
Oh,
That was the right-of-way, bridge. Okay, with that, we'll make I have a motion out there for adjourning and a second. And we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you.